Littledata live stream. Joined here today by my colleague Ross, as ever, looking for some great answers. Ross, how are you doing?
So, I'm glad that you are in this nice coffee shop, because I had to take my son's room, which looks like a dungeon. I had to turn off the lights. It's like in graffiti, and there are not super, kind of messy. But he's like a teenager, so he should get away with that for now.
It looks like a dungeon. It's very authentic.
Well, if I turn on the lights, it's gonna be worse. So don't get scared if you see some creepy drawings on walls around here. Anyway, today we're talking about audiences, right?
Yeah, we'd love to talk about kind of audience building, and I also have another little thing. Perhaps I might start with that so before we get onto audiences, because I found out something quite interesting this morning about an unannounced change Shopify made yesterday about tracking and GDPR. So, as a quick recap here, I think we've talked about in previous live streams, but there's a sort of standard way to handle cookie consent in Shopify, and you have your banner in Europe that says, do you accept the cookies? Yes, and to be compliant, you have to opt in. And we've got an article I'll share on the comments which explains how you can get that cookie consent working. Oh.
Sorry, my connection kind of dropped for a second.
No worries. GDPR, you need to basically be able to connect your cookie banner to make sure that your user opts in before you track them. Now, the dirty little secret there is that Shopify had this option for a long time called, which basically said track before consent. So they said to brands, hey, at your own risk, if you don't do all that clever integration with cookie banner and stuff, you can just track people anyway. Now, what they seem to have done and not announced to anyone is actually switched a lot of stores to the track after consent. And so one of our partners pointed this out to us. So if I just show you how it's changed. So this is in the Shopify admin and the store preferences. There used to be 3 settings here under customer privacy. You used to have collect before consent, partially collect before consent, and collect after consent. So first thing they've done is got rid of the middle one. But the second thing they've done, and this is what's more sneaky, I understand why Shopify's done it, but it's really damaging for some brands, is they've switched people to just collect after consent. So as a brand, what you may have seen the last few weeks is that your sort of all your campaign tagging, in fact, all your traffic has dropped off both in Shopify Analytics and Google Analytics. And this will be the root cause that they've switched you to collect after consent, but you may not actually have the consent collection set up. Do you get what I'm saying, Ross? So they're basically switched in order to make sure that they are GDPR compliant. Shopify's GDPR compliant. They've sort of actually stopped tracking for a lot of stores.
Only on their side, and not in the external, let's say, data warehouses or kind of the receiving.
Right. It's actually just whether it's actually the setting affects whether the data collection, including the data, waits for Shopify's consent or not. And what they've done is they've switched a lot of people to wait, but unfortunately, in a lot of sites that may be waiting forever because there's no signal that says to Shopify, yep, they've consented.
But how does that affect, let's say, any kind of data collection system that you have implemented on your Shopify store?
So if you had it set up the way that Littledata recommends and the way that we work, so you have it, you would have already had it collected after consent, and you have the cookie consent banner set up, then no change. You're not affected. You're okay. So good news for clients that also care about that stuff. But as I said, the fact of the matter is a majority of Shopify stores, and probably a very large majority of those US-based stores that maybe have not really cared about UK, EU GDPR compliance, they're going to see a sudden drop. It's only going to affect the traffic from the EU because this preference only affects EU traffic. The rest of the world's still fine. But what this partner flagged up is we're seeing a big drop in tracking for the EU. Not because they changed anything on their side, but just because the setting changed in the store preferences.
And how does that affect? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that California Act on privacy, and I think Colorado Privacy Act, what is the second legislator in US, I think they have a kind of reverse logic. They actually have to ask person to opt out, and that's
Correct.
it. If they don't opt out proactively, they are implicitly kind of, okay with being tracked. So does it affect them, or, you know?
Yeah, not so badly. You're absolutely right, Ross. It works exactly the opposite. So let me just share briefly the article I wrote about this.
They should not be hit. That
You're right. There's kind of there's California uh, consumer protection, there's Virginia and Colorado, and as you say, all of them they give people the right to opt out of processing their data. So if they'd gone into the little cookie settings and said, "I don't want to be processed," this would also affect them. But the key thing is GDPR in Europe, because there you have the right to opt. You have to opt in to
yes.
collect the data. So as I said, if you've got the cookie banner set up and you've got your little banner, it says you say, "Yep, okay, I'll accept the cookie." Then and that's all plugged into your tracking, which is another step of the process we explain in this article. Then you're okay. But the problem is a lot of people didn't have that set up, and we'll see a big drop in tracked in web traffic from Europe just because of this
And
change.
there is this, now I'm thinking, when you show that cookie banner, which is kind of simpler than I would say what OneTrust is recommending,
Yeah.
with four toggles over there. For example, if gray area would be, now we're here to talk audiences, so audiences from GA4 to be moved into Google Ads, you need to have Google Signal switched on, which means that you don't have like a remarketing tag, like necessarily called that way, but your Google Analytics, which is just a tracking cookie, so to speak, is actually being used for in another, like in a third party tool. So it's
Right.
a little bit of a gray area, which obviously
Yeah,
brings a
yeah. I mean,
little
we could probably
heat
talk at
on.
length on that, just that one point, right? But I think you're absolutely right. Perhaps that's a good segue into audiences. Let's go there, which is that. Um, I,
I'm absolutely like, with all the possibilities that GA4 actually give you to create and customize these audiences, it will be, crazy. Like I was talking to our marketing manager, and we were like, you're as good as your list, which actually usually implies about your email list, but in this case, it's like your remarketing search list ads, and not
yeah,
necessarily they're called RSLI, but not necessarily for search. It's even for email, for display, for any kind of campaign you want to create in Google Ads. So basically, uh, audiences, we are like, I'm pretty sure but there are two major paths that people often uh, forget about. So there are two ways that you can use them: either to analyze the behavior, and then to remarket to people. Analyzing behavior is cool, but with GA4 and all the problems that it can consistently keep. By the way, have you heard that it's gonna change conversions into key events?
no,
There's like a rumor that
yeah,
conversions are going to be called key events from now on. So it's kind of whatever. Why would they keep changing the tool? I don't know.
yeah,
But to go back to this, I think that with all the problems that GA4 kind of caused to people, it would be enough to master audiences and just keep them flowing into Google Ads without even too much analyzing over there, which is obviously very necessary, very very cool, but also kind of steep learning curve to get to the point, like for an average merchandiser to kind of understand how to use the analytics feature of audiences per se, versus, for example, creating just a basic add to cart, no purchase. I want to see these people cooked, and I want them over there in Google Ads.
yeah. So I mean, let's perhaps before we dive into details, the thing to clarify here is that these are first party audiences. So I think obviously back in the early days of sort of online advertising, effectively, often you were buying a list of sort of other, people on an internet who visited a certain site and stuff, and you've been telling them. These are audiences of people who've actually visited your own store, people traffic you've already driven, and as you say, the opportunity is about segmenting those and targeting a few of them, maybe based on a particular category or stage of the shopping journey they've got to. Or the opportunity could be about lookalike and building audiences that look like them. but that's something Google's not gone as far into as Facebook, and yeah, it looks like it's really currently a Facebook strategy, not a Google strategy.
Yeah, I think the lookalikes are going to, like, they abandoned the concept similar audiences. I think that's what they
They
call
did
it.
have some
Google
audiences exactly, and they rolled back because I think that there's a big again, without getting too much to the legal side, there's a big sort of privacy grey area there. But I think what Google are very much into is the first party audience of like let's help you target people who came to your store,
Yes.
but maybe didn't buy or have purchased, but you think they might purchase more.
Which is kind of nice intro to the part that Littledata actually plays in this scenario, because the more first party data you actually collect, the more personalized e-commerce first party data you collect, which Littledata provides. For example, purchase count, for example, revenue, the revenue that user actually collected. It's super easy. I was actually playing with the audiences on our own two websites, like littledata.io, and then let me share my screen to see
Yeah,
what I did here. Unfortunately, our merchandise store doesn't sell that much,
yeah.
which is
We don't have a big enough audience to
kind of
work with. Yeah,
gonna keep us in the theoretical realm, but we can show to viewers what could be a nice way to actually structure their Littledata based audiences apart from these. So we're here in the Littledata IO, which is a B2B site, doesn't sell anything. And then we have, wait a sec, we have Littledata Store, which is a merchandise store, unfortunately not very popular among people around the world, but basically good enough to show the concept. So audiences are being set up in the admin panel. Don't even try to memorize what I'm doing here, because they changed this. They kind of did this major overhaul in the middle of all the anger that people are throwing at Google Analytics 4. They
yeah.
did major.
It freaked me out last week going in here because I was pretty familiar with the last version.
Crazy.
But
If
as you
somebody's
say,
watching and seeing this here, and for the first time, it's because like it's been rolled out of the blue for everybody. Anyway,
yeah.
in the admin panel somewhere, there must be audiences among all these other options, open audiences, and here we see just a couple of them. We actually made these up just for the demo. Obviously, we don't sell dog food, but for example, take a look at this one. So all users and purchases, number one, they're going to be there by default. Everybody, and then people who bought. And then we can have, this is like a no-brainer. This is a third audience that we advise everybody to make straight off the bat. Here it is, how it looks. No, let me, for the fun of demo, let me show you how would you create a new audience, custom audience. First event, you want people who had add to cart, but you actually want to exclude people who purchased. That's how simple it is to create this audience. And here there is this nice estimate tool which shows you all the people who added to cart minus the subset of people who purchased. And beware that whatever is written here as an estimate is actually going backwards. So it's actually analyzing people who already have cookies and are active, are kept, whose data has been kept in GA4. It's not going to populate the audience right away with these people. This is just an estimate. How many of them would there be for this audience, backwards looking? And
perhaps
go on.
I might plug there before you go on is the fact that the effectiveness of the audience is based on the effectiveness of those two metrics. So the more people you track who actually added to cart, and the more people you track who actually purchased, the better performing the audience is. Because you know if you don't track enough people that added to cart, Littledata has the server side add to cart tracking, trying to improve that capture rate, then you're missing people that did add to cart weren't tracked. And equally, if you don't track people who purchased, you end up basically targeting people who literally just bought product. There's nothing dumber in the dumb ads world than just having an ad that you literally just bought the product and you'll be targeted that thing. So it's one of the things we're pushing is that the latest value is in getting both the add to cart and the purchase don't track accurately.
Plus the middle, the server side events that come in between after add to cart, which is, the shipping info, payment info, stuff like that. That can be also super laser precise targeting for, obviously, for the large volume websites to be able to capture those people who actually gave up on payment details or shipping info. Is your shipping cost maybe too high, or whatever the message can be in the campaigns, but obviously addressing the right problem at the right moment to the right people. Anyway,
and I guess knowing the value of that problem, because obviously your willingness to retarget people as they came down the funnel is greater. So as you said, they literally dropped off the payment method, and you know that like at that point, 80% of people convert to paying. Your willingness to just nudge them over the line is high, right? You pay a lot to do that. Whereas for add to cart, you still a decent number. Half of them might convert, but not quite as many.
Of course, but the message is is actually talking to the problem that they probably had. We can guess, but the more educated the guess, the more the better the answer could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, to go back to the just simple structuring we were talking about, dog food viewers who potential purchaser, for example, check it out. Category contains dog food, and they actually add it to cart more than 3 times. This is just a like a demo totally, and obviously nobody in this audience, because there are no people who added more than 3 times to the cart dog food.
And we don't sell dog food. Yeah,
we don't actually. Yeah, that's a disclaimer.
Yeah, and I've seen. I guess in a similar vein, obviously, you can actually look at people who viewed a product category a number of times. I think there's actually a really classic tactic that one of our first clients, Made.com, used to use, which is retargeting people who,
for example,
more than 3 product pages, because that's a good signal. And you know what I mean. You see the first one, well, you may not be even interested in the product category at all, but if you view 3 products in a product category, you're probably interested.
Of course, you can actually create sequences, anything that's actually applicable to segments, which is another kind of high-end GA4 powers. I'd say is applicable here as well. So let me see what we got prepared here. There is one thing that actually should be noted, that the moment you create, for example, I created this one today. I was playing with it. See the coincidence? These ones are actually, this was created 2 years ago on the day. Never mind. So this one was created today, and whatever audience you create today, even if it's like a high volume and a high potential, is going to show up as less than 10 users, because, as we said, the estimate works, backwards, but the filling starts from the moment you actually set it up. And also, a question that actually pops up pretty often from our customers is, why do we see audiences in Google Ads have substantially fewer people in the pool versus GA4? There is one thing to kind of that we need to set up straight. So Google Ads is counting people one by one. For example, if for some reason your tracking is obscured because somebody has a aggressive browser, or they have some kind of an ad blocker, GA4 is still gonna try to estimate the number based on the previous trends. And if you know statistics, you know how actually accurate you are whenever you kind of close your eyes. But if you're kind of super confident how many people actually pass by your main street in the high hour, in the rush hour, you can do it with your eyes closed, and GA4 is actually gonna do the estimate. So the number is gonna be more artificially what they think, that how many people would there be, versus Google Ads is going to count individual people with cookies. Always there is a significantly lesser. It can be 10, it can be 20%, it can be 30%. I've seen like way less people in Google Ads versus GA4 audiences, and the answer is because GA4 estimates and is helping you analyze the behavior, whereas Google Ads is actually counting, ad, ROAS, and person number 3, number 4.
Can we just unpack that bit about the audiences building? Because I think it's quite a hard one to understand. So let's take the example of the dog feed potential purchases, right?
Let's build one from scratch. Go on.
Yeah. So I build the audience now, and let's say it's people who'd added 3 dog food products to cart.
You want me to open that one? Let's say.
Yeah, let's just look at that one. This is on.
The existing.
I think this one. Yeah. Exactly.
Dog food potential purchasers. I don't know why we call them.
So what you're saying is that this won't go back in time and find people from last month who added 3 dog food products to cart. This is building from this point in time forwards.
Yes.
I create the audience.
Yes.
So if I did that a week ago, it's not going to count me. But if I do it again tomorrow, it will count me.
Yes. Here is actually I actually prepared an example for that. Check this out. These are for a substantial volume in this audience. This is Littledata.io. Analytics readers minus people who onboarded.
Yeah.
And we created them on June 29th. When we look at this is another important feature of Google Analytics 4, in user attributes, in the user collection, there is audiences report by default. So take a look at it. We're looking at the span of June 1st. Again, we created that one June 29th. Here it is. If you take a look, it's like this purple one. I don't know why they made GA4 so monochromatic, but this is organic, sorry, but here they are. Analytics readers minus onboarders. I hope that you can see the hover pop-up. So if you see, they just appeared in the analysis tab
so
here.
It's basically flat. It's a flat before the end of June.
It's 0 before June 29th. So the other ones are here. I don't know, blog readers and actually the audiences that were created prior to that date. But these two.
So then my question, next question again, I kind of know the answers, but why isn't it just going up and up? Why is it sort of constantly dropping a little bit?
Users by audience over time. So we are. Why are we not seeing more and more people in the audience? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. But I think it's because the audience has an expiry date instead of a certain number of days. So
audiences do have expiry date. I think this is actually how many users on a particular date. We wouldn't be seeing such a high ups and downs.
Right. So these are people who actually just got into the audience on that day, not necessarily people.
Yes. It's not cumulative sort of graph, so to speak. So let's check it out. For example, that's a good point. It does have an expiry date. Let me show you.
You're right.
Here.
So that's not what we're seeing in that chart.
This one is 30. Yes, but just let me get back to the point for a second. So 30 days lasting. So if we're looking at this chart, this low purple one says 160, 100, so 200 and something like that. So and in entire audience we have what? So this is the entire number of sessions that happened from these people, analytics readers minus onboarders. This is how many knew of them. This is like the users and things they did. But right now, there are just 1,900. And by day, it's mostly about 200 people that comply with this condition.
After 30 days, if they haven't done that action again, they basically they fill out the audience.
Yes, if they didn't have.
You can extend that period.
Ed, we did an experiment with a customer, and it seems that there is this tick box that kind of tickles the intrigued people. But let me show you super quickly. So we create a new one, and it says we want, I don't know, page path to contain, for example, or page view, and the path could be, for example, contains. Come on. No. A parameter. Nope. There it is. Never mind. For example, page title contains Littledata. Oh, sorry. Let's contains blog. Maybe it's not the best way. It doesn't say blog. Never mind. Forget about there they are. But why is it not showing me any time in the past? Just
you can set up a sort of time parameter on the actual.
I'm gonna create. No, there was some kind of a. Now it's not showing, but
maybe they've improved it.
Let me see if this would help. Yeah, here it is. So if I'm setting up the parameter straight away, so page path contains blog. This is what I wanted to show you. We were playing with this tick with a different with a client, and it didn't seem to make any change in GA4. However, in Google Ads audiences, it did create significantly a bigger audience when you tick any point in time versus untick that box.
Yeah.
So that's just
I think I understand
empirical
that. So
data.
basically, the user is the criteria whether the user in the audience is still there. The question is,
Yes,
if that user's journey, did we go back
that's
and
a good
start?
assumption. We actually assume the same thing. There is no talk about it in documentation, and it's not super intuitive with that box. But maybe I don't
No.
know. It's like here you see the same. You see the same. Also with the expiry that we were just talking about, you set up
Yeah.
expire audience to expire after 2 days versus 540, which is the maximum, and the number remains the same in this table here, even after 3 months, 4 months. Whereas the Google Ads audiences are way, way bigger if you tell them expire in 540 versus expire, after a week. So it
Okay.
kind of makes sense for the remarketing, not for the analysis that much.
So I guess your basic guidance is only use the user's number here as sort of indicative. It's not actually. It doesn't actually mean that many people in the audience. It means
That they
it's
that they
estimate.
last for that much. Of course, absolutely. In this case as well. So we're looking at analysts really smarter on borders. Uh, I don't believe that out of 12,000 people that actually were here during this
Yeah.
time period, only 1,900 right now are still in the audience. So
Super interesting. Well, I'm afraid that's about all we've got time for. We did start a bit late, but I think anyone who's got more questions about audiences and kind of how to build this, please reach out. I think we'll keep covering this because for me this is the heart of kind of what we'll miss with Google Analytics. That it's not just about reporting and actually analysing what you're doing. It's actually about using those. It's actually about segmenting and then being able to target those people. And I actually think having used a few different audience building tools in Segment and other tools, the Google Analytics one is quite powerful. There's really no sort of audience I could actually imagine that I can't build on that tool. As you say, you can do sequences, you can do inclusion exclusion filters, you can do people who did this thing but only with a certain parameter. So I mean, I'd actually challenge someone to say, hey, but I couldn't build this kind of audience, as long as you have the data points going in there.
Seems like a stretch because it seems that it's not that much of a reporting tool. It's like an actionable thing that marketers should, once they profess it, they kind of can do anything. But it's a long bridge between a regular Google ad person, PPC manager, to go into GA4 and build these audiences. Once
Right.
they kind of get more comfortable with this, reporting is just one side of the tool, but actually having these people go back to your lists is the superpower that those who actually embraced it are
Yeah.
making much higher ROI, obviously, because it's not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and I think that's our message is exactly that. If you think GA4 is just about the pretty graphs, and as you say, they're not even that pretty. So
Not pretty at all.
you probably that would be a
Maybe
bad. That
that's
would be
why
a
they
bad
made
use
it
case.
monochromatic. They actually
Right.
made it ugly and confusing to stop people finally to
Yeah.
live with it as a reporting tool. This is not a reporting tool. It's like
Exactly.
collects
And if you
data
see
and
it as
sends it over to Google Ads.
audience building for Google Ads, and it suddenly transforms Lens. This is now actually a revenue driver for you.
Should be like that, especially with the specialized data and particular data that Littledata helps them collect. With e-commerce, there's so much possible combinations that makes sense on so many levels to retarget these people. So I guess
Okay,
that
well, great for having you as everyone on the chat. Audience, so we'll be back next week and talking more about topics around analytics and data platforms. So please join us then.
it was great talking to you. Cheers. Enjoy your coffee.
Bye.